What up? It's Lupe Fiasco, chilling with Kevin W. Reese. You heard?
Kevin W. Reese.
Why the title Lasers? And why this imagery? Yeah, you got kind of the losers thing, and then the A's crossing it out, man. Let the folks see that at home. Why the imagery? Why the title?
Well, I always had the title in my head. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Food and Liquor. Same thing with the Cool.
Yeah.
I've always had just that word lasers in my head. But it didn't really mean anything other than just kind of like the light. You know what I'm saying? Or just being light or what have you, shedding light on different things. And so what I did, lasers actually stands for love always shines every time. Remember to smile. You know?
Acronym now. Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the dots? Where's the period?
Well, I didn't want to confuse it too much.
I got you.
But it was really, and then the imagery as far as like taking the A and putting it over O, so kind of in an anarchy kind of situation, was basically to take something that was inherently negative, like losers, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And just changing it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Everything doesn't take a revolution, everything doesn't take a complete, just wipe it away and bring up something new. You really can just change one piece of it, and turn it into a completely different thing. So decided to put the A over the O and go from losers to lasers. And lasers is something that's very, it's like it's on the back, lasers shed light on justice and inequality. Losers stand by and let things happen. Lasers act and shape their own destinies. Lasers find meaning and direction in the mysteries all around them. You know what I'm saying? Lasers stand for love and compassion. Lasers stand for peace. Lasers stand for progression. So it's kind of like redefining, what the word laser is and giving it more meaning and what have you.
Now, do you think that with the internet right now, the explosion that's happened within, I would say, the last 4 to 5 years, do you think that's helped hip-hop? Because we're starting to see bigger movements from people that maybe aren't so on the radio, that aren't making the dancey, clubby, poppy songs on the radio. People are having really strong movements on the web right now. Do you think that it's a huge advancement for hip-hop?
Yeah, on a cultural side, most definitely. On a commercial side, when you think about when it just comes down to numbers, like selling units and what have you, I think there's a certain hindrance when you get into like leaks and just it started to create this, especially because of stuff like Napster and all this other craziness. It started to create this climate where people felt like they didn't have to pay for music anymore. So on one end, you got a massive fan base. Look at Soulja Boy. You got this massive Twitter following, this massive internet kind of presence. And then when it comes to real world albums, it's the flip flop. And it's not just singling him out because he's the most recent, but it goes through all the artists. You know what I'm saying? You would think that because they have all this presence and what have you, that is going to relate into real world kind of numbers, and sometimes it just doesn't, and sometimes the people who don't have any of that, you know what I'm saying, or it's very, very sparse or very, very, just kind of like they may have a little bit, they're massive, and they're massive in the real world, and the reason that they actually have the big internet following is because they're already massive in the real world, you know what I'm saying? So it's a real funny world to kind of walk in, and how much attention do you actually put into it, you know what I'm saying? If you just thinking I'm gonna just be big on the internet and that's gonna mean people gonna want to come out and see me at a show, or that means people gonna buy my album when it come out, it's not necessarily true,
Right.
So
it has something to do with the connection with the fans. That's ultimately what it comes down to, because there's what I call radio rappers. They come out with the 3 big singles. They're huge. They're on the radio for so long, and then they sell 10,000 units. And then you got an underground cat who has no song on the radio and just has that connection with his fans, and he sells 10,000 units, but makes more money.
Right.
Right.
Or he'll sell, 50,000 units,
right,
or 100,000 units in the long term, you know what I'm saying, and make 10 times the amount of money that the artist who sold, or sometimes the artists don't make any money,
right?
You know what I'm saying, to be honest. It's just a really weird world, you know what I'm saying, that we're in right now when it comes to music and the convergence of the internet and the web and real world actual sales and the marketplace in the real world. It's very, very, very interesting.
Now, your first 2 albums, they came out pretty consistently, pretty much a year apart, almost, right?
In 06 and the Cool at the end of 07.
And then, took a few years off, kind of, in a way. Not off, but as far as an album. And now you're coming back with Lasers. What was with the time in between, man?
On tour, you know what I'm saying? and just kind of like really on tour. You know what I'm saying? We actually got an opportunity to go out on tour for like 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Just getting filling a lot of requests and doing a lot of different things. You know, taking time out to do the things like the Climb for Kilimanjaro, and then some of that touring was actually going back to the label with Lasers finished. You know what I'm saying? Lasers as a finished product. I was like, yo, this is what we want to put out. And it's like, well, we don't want to put that out, kind of a thing. And it's like, all right, well, I'm finna go on tour. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then when you're going to make money, you're going for another 2 months. Then you come back and it's like, yo, what are we doing? Well, we don't know yet. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back on a tour. You know, I'm gonna go do this, or I'm gonna spend my time in other places. You know, for me, it's a job. You know, and and because it's a job, there has to be something other than a job. You know, there has to be a personal life, a family. You know, I want to go on vacation for a month, or I want to do this.
Now, how often do you write? Or do you just write for the album when you know the time frame of pretty much when it's gonna be coming out? You know, maybe Atlantic's on your ass saying, all right, we gotta get another album out, whatever. Or do you just write all the time?
It's in spurts. You know, sometimes I write specifically for a project. Sometimes I'll do some recreational writing, you know. Sometimes I'll get a beat where I'm just like, yo, I got to do this right now. Even though I know it's not going to be for Lasers or the next album or a mixtape. It's just like, I got to get this song out kind of a situation. So, you know, I don't write as much as I used to. Like, I used to write every day, you know. But now I don't write every day, maybe once a week, you know, keep it light.
Okay.
Keep it potent.
Potent is better. Lupe Fiasco, Lasers coming out soon, and album number 3. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What album are you on? Where are you at in your career? And as a person?
5 years, we should be. Hopefully, I'll be out of my traditional record deal, in the record deal I am in right now. Probably living in Africa somewhere. You know.
Okay.
Making rock music.
Rock music? Word? Okay.
Who knows, man? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
So you want to be out of your deal?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You want to be indie?
Yeah, man.
I would rather be independent.
I would rather be independent. You know what I'm saying? I would take that, but that independent comes with its own set of consequences. So that takes preparation. You know what I'm saying? The same way that you prepare to come into a record deal, you have to be prepared to go into an indie situation, because there's a lot of things that you're gonna lose in that route. As far as, because I'm used to being in a record deal.
Well, you're gonna lose the promotion.
Yeah, you're gonna lose the promotion.
But you could just throw it on iTunes and get busy and promote through the blogs.
Yeah, you could. You could, but I'm banned from half the hip hop blogs on the internet. So
why do you think that is?
Because I confronted them. I called them out. You know, they felt that I confronted them in a very physical way, which I did not. That's a lie. But you know,
what did you confront them about though?
About leaking my songs.
Okay.
Having stolen songs and leaking them out.
Right.
But I still get internet love, even beyond that. You know what I'm saying? I think it was inconsequential in a certain aspect, because I'm still aware that the internet is just that one piece.
Absolutely.
You know, and the rest of it is out here.
I look at it as a whole nother radio station in a way.
It is. Exactly. That's exactly what it is, with its program directors and its MDs and the whole thing. And
That's right. And favoritism and all that sort of stuff. I know. There's some sites I should be on. I feel you. My last question. Rumor about a supergroup. What's going on there, man?
Which one?
I'm hearing Pharrell.
Oh, it's CRS.
Okay.
It's not a rumor. You know, CRS, Child Ripper Soulja, myself, Kanye, and Pharrell started a group called CRS like a few years ago around the Glow in the Dark tour. But it's not. It could become a full body of work, you know, or it could just kind of be these sporadic songs. You know, it's like we did a song for Good Friday called "Don't Stop." We did a song called "Us Placers" that we released a few years ago. You know, and it's really just kind of like, we got a song, let's put it out. You know, there's no real.
But it hasn't evolved into, hey, let's do an album.
Nah, it had at one point.
Okay.
It's kind of everybody got busy doing their own thing. So.
All right, fair enough, man. Lupe Fiasco, Lasers coming soon. Don't miss it. You know, it's Losers with an A.
Kevin W. Reese.